the ketamine.
Oh, yeah.
Then I stayed off them for something approximating
a week.
Not knowing that was a very bad idea. And I often think I should have known these things because I did a lot of scientific research when I was a graduate student on alcoholism. And I knew that alcohol and benzodiazepines and barbiturates were all the same chemical class, at least in terms of their effect on neurological effects. But what I knew about benzodiazepines was that they were comparatively safe compared to barbiturates, which they basically replaced. But that's much less true than everybody who's taking them hopes.
Now, so barbiturates were the common anxiety sedatives people used to use prior to like the 1950s when benzos came on the market. And it's true, benzos are less likely to cause respiratory depression and make you stop breathing, but they have much worse withdrawal. And, you know, it's not really Dr. Peterson's fault that he didn't know this. I mean, he's a specialist in psychology, but the doctors who are looking after him should have known that if you've been on this drug for like 4 years or something like that, you can't just stop it in a week. That's incredibly destabilizing.
And they're very widely.
Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty ridiculous sort of piece of malpractice there, and piece of advice that he got from his doctors. But anyways.
Prescribed, and I don't remember what the probability of developing a dependency on them is if you take them for more than 2 weeks. It's 50%, I believe.
It's something like 50%.
Yeah, if you take them for 2 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, and over 4 weeks, it's much, much higher.
Right.
And most people prescribe them, stay on them for life. And that could have something to do with the fact that they're very difficult to get off of.
Yeah, so dependency means if you stay on them for any more than like 2 to 4 weeks, you're physically dependent on it and you will go into withdrawal. And then you have to come off in a gradual way. Otherwise, you get hit with severe anxiety and insomnia. And that's why people can get trapped on this drug. And that's why it's really important to only take it short term.
Yeah, well, it was unbelievably unpleasant. I mean, it was unbearably unpleasant. And so I started tapering off when Tammy was in the hospital, but I couldn't push that too fast because it wasn't bearable.
And what do you mean it wasn't bearable?
My anxiety levels went higher than anything I'd ever experienced. And I also developed this condition called akathisia. And the best way I can describe that is that it was like being jabbed with something, but with a prod, like a cattle prod, something electric or something sharp, nonstop for hours, for all the hours I was awake. It was absolutely, I couldn't sit or lay down or stop moving. And even if I did get up and move, it wasn't like that made it better. I just couldn't stop doing it. It was horrible.
I've worked with many patients who have had this condition. I mean, that sounds awful, but there's really no words to describe how terrible it is. I mean, imagine feeling driven to move every second of the day, never feeling calm, never feeling relaxed, and you're getting electrical shocks that are going down your face and down the back of your neck and your body, and you keep on jolting. And while you're experiencing that, you have cognitive impairment and severe anxiety. You're stuck in the most negative place in the world, where everything is catastrophic and, you know, your world is going to end. It can really go on for several months. I've seen this go on for a year in some of my patients before it starts to settle down. And this will make people suicidal.
And things just fell apart more and more. Tammy recovered rather miraculously in the middle of August. But I continued my sort of downhill spiral and ended up in a clinic on the Eastern Seaboard that claimed they could do a rapid benzodiazepine detox, which was a complete bloody lie.
Yeah, well, what we figured was we didn't realize that there was this physical dependency until you stopped to try and do the ketamine. And then we tried tapering and you couldn't stand it because of the akathisia. And so we thought, well, let's go get some professional help.
Right.
So Michaela and Dr. Peterson are way more knowledgeable than most people about this subject. But this is where my perspective starts to veer a little bit. And they acknowledge this later on, that this does not help him. But people will look at someone like Dr. Peterson, who is having severe symptoms, and who was trying to come off a benzodiazepine and say, oh, he's just like addicted. He just can't handle the withdrawal. Like he's not strong enough to push through the withdrawal symptoms. We're just going to bring him into a residential facility. We're going to kind of pull him off the medications. Like if he's on Klonopin, we'll put him on Valium. That's called the Ashton protocol. Valium is a longer acting benzodiazepine. It's a bit more sedative. Some people tolerate tapering off that more. And so they look at this as like, hey, we're just going to like tweak the way we remove this drug out of your system. Maybe we'll do it more gradually. You'll be in a nice setting. Maybe you get some other comfort medications. Maybe there's some massage and, different things like that. That is not what is going on now. This has now ceased to be I'm just dependent on this medication and it's hard to bring it out. Jordan Peterson has a neurological injury at this point. And you know that because, he came off the medication, things got worse, he goes back on, he's still really sick, he develops akathisia. You heard before when he went to a higher dose, that didn't work either. That made him actually feel worse. What we're looking at is more like someone who's had a severe concussion, someone who's fallen out a window, someone who's had chemotherapy for cancer, and now they've had neurological damage, which can sometimes happen. So he just has damaged neurons. And so this is the really hard part about this condition. There is not much someone can do at this point. So when I see patients like this who have damaged nervous systems, what I tell them to do is we are going to just slowly taper you off the medication over time, maybe over a year or so, but you cannot expect the symptoms to improve immediately. Most of these patients, after they've had this injury, it will take them about 18 months to 2 years to recover. And you essentially just bring the drug down very gradually because you have to get the drug out because the drug is toxic. And then you support their physical health and then you keep them alive. But all of these different things that they end up doing shortly, such as, going to these rehabs, swapping benzos, trying different tapers, you'll notice that they get into this severe panic because he's so sick. I mean, he talks about being on the verge of ending his life at times. It's completely understandable. You would be panicking. Your family would be panicking. And so they start reaching for straws all the way up into actually leaving the country and trying to get different care. And this is just very common for people when they get super sick. They reach out for anything that can help. Let's listen to this.
And I went to the clinic on the understanding that they could do a multi-day detoxification and treatment for withdrawal. And when I got there, what they told me instead was that they'd substitute one benzodiazepine for another, which wasn't the least bit helpful because clonazepam was already a long-acting benzodiazepine, and they're easier to wean off than the shorter-acting benzodiazepines. And they had nothing to offer, essentially. I came out of that clinic worse than when I went in. So,
like significantly worse.
Yes.
On two more sedative-like drugs in order to dampen down the akathisic symptoms.
Right.
And the other issue is once you've damaged your neurons.
Before we hear from him, this makes me think of, not to joke, but like how stupid that those people are at that rehab place or wherever he went. It's like, if you ever seen Talladega Nights, and obviously Ricky Bobby gets in that car accident, he thinks his legs don't work. And so he stabs himself in the leg with a knife to try and prove to his friends that he's paralyzed. But then he realizes he can feel the knife in his leg. And he's like, oh my God. And then they stab another knife in his leg to get the other knife out. And then it's like 3 knives are in his leg to get the one knife out. That's what this is like. It's like that fucking scene from Talladega Nights. And that's a comedy humor. This is like someone's real life. And so again, that's why it's important to find information that's real and legit about the things that you're going through so you can equip yourself as best as possible, so that we don't get put in these even worse situations than when we walked in, especially when you're dealing with something as serious related to your health and your mental health and your physical health like Dr. Jordan Peterson is dealing with.